Hey everyone, Doble here, back with a video to discuss my opinion and reactions to Super Bowl 58 with the Kansas City Chiefs versus the San Francisco 49ers. For those who saw my Super Bowl prediction video, either the English or Spanish one, or both hopefully, you'll know that I had predicted that my favorite team, as you see by the flag behind me, the 49ers are my favorite team. I predicted they would win by a score of 34-24. And that it would be a competitive game where the offenses and defenses would both have their moments of greatness. As one of my viewers that commented on the video has stated, yeah, that prediction unfortunately did not age well. The only thing in terms of predictions that aged well was my over-under prediction that Taylor Swift would be shown more than 6 times during the Super Bowl because the NFL is using her like a cash cow. I mean, aside from that, yeah, it didn't end well. So after taking a couple weeks to obviously focus on my studies in college, and hearing people's opinions and reactions to the game, and also taking the time to recover from the grief and sadness, Okay, yeah. In all seriousness, after hearing many takes and seeing the aftermath, I did want to give my take. So yeah, let's get right into it. So the 49ers, unfortunately, they did lose to the Kansas City Chiefs 25-22, and it went into overtime. And with that, the Chiefs have not only won 3 Super Bowls, but this Super Bowl win also solidifies themselves as the NFL's new New England Patriots. They are the new dynasty of the NFL. As for the 49ers, that's the 3rd consecutive Super Bowl that they have lost. Super Bowl 47 versus the Baltimore Ravens, and now Super Bowls 54 and 58 to Kansas City. The game was a lot more competitive and close than I think many expected. I heard people saying that the Chiefs would, just thrash the 49ers and that it would be a blowout, and how Brock Purdy would turn the ball over and prove why he's just a system game manager quarterback. He's not even a mid-tier, he's just a bad quarterback, and he would get exposed. But the opposite kind of happened. The defense, which was a big concern for the 49ers specifically, given how they looked during the first halves against Detroit and Green Bay in the divisional and NFC championships respectively, they came to play. They played really well, and they were great at stopping the run in this game. Steve Wilkes was great. The defense was great. Chase Young played his heart out. Yeah, that entire side of the ball, they were great until the very end in overtime when they unfortunately folded. Special teams, they were mid-tier like they have been for most of the year. Ray McLeod fumbled one that he could have just let be a fair catch, or he could have just simply fell on. Moody missed an extra point, but granted, that was the Chiefs' defense also just being great like it has been, because the Moody's missed extra point was blocked. It wasn't just like he shanked it wide right or hooked it left or just some awful kick. It got blocked. Purdy again, people doubting, hating, a lot of slander. One of the most harshly criticized players I've seen in the NFL. A little unjustified. They're almost hoping he would fail and, turn the ball over a lot, just so they could say, told you, he's trash. Quarterbacks must only be first-round picks or they're failures. He actually held his own. He threw for a touchdown to Juwan Jennings and didn't turn the ball over at all in this game. And while some will say he still failed because he missed a pass to a wide-open Ayuk for a touchdown, he was also at the same time scrambling and avoiding sacks because the O-line really, really struggled. So given the O-line struggles and that there were moments where he was staring at taking a 10-yard loss and a sack, he held his own and was great. Christian McCaffrey was also great. He had 160 yards total and a touchdown. Jennings had a throwing and receiving touchdown, and frankly, Juwan Jennings, he probably would have been the Super Bowl MVP had they won, but they unfortunately didn't. They lost because, once again, The offense as a complete unit, they didn't play their A game. The offensive line showed exactly why in the draft and offseason we really need to get better offensive linemen, both in the center and right side. Because there was a play where Chris Jones, it was actually, in fact, the play where Brock Purdy missed Brandon Ayuk wide open in the end zone. That was because Brock Purdy had to scramble and throw the ball away quickly to avoid a sack, where Chris Jones went completely unblocked. And, I mean, Purdy just barely got the ball away before the sack. It was a blown assignment by the O-line, and he just, not even touched. Chris Jones just went straight at Purdy. Trent Williams, arguably one of the best left tackles in football, finally in the Super Bowl, the biggest game of his life. He got thrashed, man. He got thrashed in this game. He did not play well because, frankly, he had nobody else helping him to protect Purdy in the pocket to give him time to throw. Kittle almost felt non-existent in terms of getting the ball and receiving because a lot of the times he had to help the O-line block and protect Purdy. And when he was used as a receiver, he was completely shut down. He could not get open. I'll say the same thing for Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk in this game. Ayuk was actually okay, but Deebo also struggled. They struggled to get open. They didn't play the best, and the defense for the Chiefs has been great all year. And L'Jarius Sneed and those boys absolutely balled out on the Chiefs' defense. And at the end, they also just got out-coached. Some could say that isn't all too surprising because, obviously, Andy Reid, he's been in the NFL longer. But Shanahan and Wilkes, they still got out-coached. In terms of grades, Brock Purdy, B grade. He managed and competed well in this game. He threw for 255 yards and a touchdown and held his own despite the O-line struggles and moments where he had to scramble to avoid sacks. He didn't take on unnecessary risks or make any major blunders in the game. No turnovers, but also no major plays because his receivers struggled to get open. The O-line didn't give him enough time in the pocket. And then again, Chiefs defense is much better than it was in years past. Purdy is clearly a better quarterback than people think, and certainly better than Jimmy Garoppolo ever was. Nevertheless, I still imagine the 49ers will wait till next year to officially decide whether they want to keep him or not. Also because of salary cap, they'll want to also add more depth to the team while he's on a rookie contract. But so far, he's young, got to the bowl in just his second year, which is incredible. And so far, Brock Purdy does look promising. Running backs, B+. Christian McCaffrey had 160 yards in total, combined from rushing and receiving, and had a touchdown. However, he also had a fumble on the first drive of the game, where the 49ers were in scoring position. In a close game like this, that was a very critical mistake. Wide receivers, B. Juwan Jennings with a receiving and throwing touchdown on a trick play would have likely been the MVP had the 49ers won. He's a very underrated player who will be a free agent this offseason. He's a player that the 49ers will want to try to keep. Brandon Ayuk had a very mid-tier performance in this game. He struggled to get open and break away from L'Jarius Sneed, who was on him, like a hawk. He was completely shutting down Brandon Ayuk. Only 3 catches for 49 yards for Ayuk in this game. Deebo Samuel was the worst of the 3 wide receivers. He only had 3 catches for 33 yards. They just couldn't get open at all. Tight ends, C. Run game struggled, and George Kittle was having to help the O-line a lot in this game. And when he was used as a receiver, he couldn't get open. Only 2 catches for 4 yards. It was just borderline non-existent performance. Granted, one was to convert a 4th down, so he did have a clutch moment in the game. Offensive line, D. They committed a lot of penalties, gave up a lot of pressures, resulting in just 3.5 yards per carry on the ground, with nobody else to help. With nobody else to help him on the offensive line. Trent Williams got absolutely thrashed, and had one of the worst games of this year. Then there was the open Ayuk play that was a missed opportunity for SF because they let Chris Jones go unblocked at Brock Purdy, forcing him to essentially run for his life. The 49ers have 11 draft picks this year. In this upcoming draft, they'll have 11, which is a lot. And they need to invest in the O-line, especially on the center and right side. Defensive linemen, A-. We got to give them credit because they balled out for 4 quarters. And even Chase Young, who has been criticized for the lack of effort, especially in the games in the NFC Championship game, he played his heart out. They unfortunately they got gassed in overtime, giving up runs to Mahomes, and frankly, that was it for them. Linebackers, A. Fred Warner recorded an all-time 13 tackles, and they shut down the Chiefs' run game. Dre Greenlaw played well while he was there, but unfortunately suffered a torn Achilles while entering the field. And as someone who has torn their Achilles before, it's just a painful and heartbreaking, way to go out. It was definitely one of the weirdest injuries I've seen, as he was entering the field. He wasn't even on the field playing, so definitely a freak injury right there. And frankly, I've never seen a player get hurt like that before. So I guess you could say once again, this strange curse of Satan gives the 49ers another bad injury moment. Despite losing Greenlaw, the linebackers still, for the most part up until overtime, did hold their own. So for that, I do give them an A grade. Defensive backs, C. Jared Brown intercepted Mahomes, a blunder we rarely see from Mahomes. But the secondary as a whole gave up 2 touchdowns to wide open receivers, with the second one resulting in them losing the Super Bowl. They were unprepared for a play that the Chiefs used on the Eagles the year before. You'd figure Steve Wilkes would prepare them for that one to come up at some point, but he didn't. We'll talk more about Steve Wilkes in a bit. Special teams, now D grade. Ray McLeod muffed a punt, resulting in a turnover and a Chiefs touchdown. So Ray McLeod and the special teams are just as responsible for anyone for this loss. Jake Moody made a 53 and a 55-yard field goal, showing off his leg and the potential accuracy he has, but he also missed an extra point, which was not great. Had he made the extra point, it would have forced the Chiefs to go for a touchdown in regulation time instead of, just settling the 3 to get to overtime. Coaches, C. Steve Wilkes actually kind of outcoached Andy Reid and the offense for most of the game, which was pretty good. Shut down the run game and had the defensive line dialed in compared to the last few weeks in the divisional and NFC final matches, but he had absolutely zero answers for the zone read or game-winning touchdown pass. The defense wasn't prepared for any of those plays, and frankly, that was on Steve Wilkes. As for Kyle Shanahan, this is the 3rd Super Bowl he has lost. One as an offensive coordinator with the Atlanta Falcons, and now 2 with the 49ers. All while leading by 10 or more points. In the 3rd quarter, he called 11 pass attempts and 3 runs, and they didn't score. And while the Chiefs' defense was amazing in this game as well, there were moments where you could argue he could have called more run game plays and used Christian McCaffrey more, as he is the best running back in the NFL. Overall, his offense did not play at their A game as a unit. This resulted in him getting outcoached by defensive coach Steve Spagnuolo for the Chiefs. Then there was the mistake that both coaches made together, and that is not preparing the team for a possible overtime scenario. In fact, the 49ers were so unprepared for overtime that it was reported and stated by some of the 49ers players after the game that up until they announced and put the rules up on the stadium's big TV screens, they didn't know the rules to overtime in the playoffs. They did not know about the new rule where both sides would get the ball in overtime. And in a way, it makes sense that they wouldn't really know the new rule entering the Super Bowl, because it has been a long time since the last time the 49ers went into an overtime game. I think it was before the new rule, and it was in the regular season where they don't have the new rule. But regardless, that is still on the coaches to make sure they know the full overtime scenario and prepare them for plays that they could face in overtime. That's on both Shanahan and Wilkes equally. Now, some are also being critical about how taking the ball first in overtime was also stupid. I'll actually give them some slack on that one. I can definitely understand the decision behind that because, I mean, if you think about it, if you get the ball first, you can score points and with that put pressure on the other team. And by getting the ball and scoring first, you're putting pressure and not giving any slack to the best quarterback of his generation in Patrick Mahomes. Because of that, I will admit, I was also thinking while watching the game, yeah, take the ball first. Obviously a lesson learned for the entire league and all the teams, given we have only had like 2 of these playoff overtime scenarios. Lesson learned that it is better to get the ball second. That way you know what you need to get, and you have the 4th down, you have that extra play instead of a forced punt or something like that. So in terms of getting the ball first or second, I'm not criticizing that as much, but the fact that the players were unprepared for overtime and they didn't know the rules was something that is at the hands of both coaches. So the grades as units, I would say the offense had a B performance. The defense for the 49ers, that was an A. They played great. And honestly, both defenses played better than both offenses in this game. Coaches, C. And special teams with a muffed punt and blocked kick, a D. In terms of undoing plays and moments, I'd say there were 4 of them for the 49ers in this game. The first was Christian McCaffrey's fumble on the first drive of the game. They were in scoring position and would have scored at least a field goal, so that could have been at least 3 points. Then the blocked extra point, that's 4 points. The muffed punt, I would say, is the third moment leading to their fall in this game. If they kept possession there, you wonder if they could have scored on that drive. If these 3 things went right, the 49ers would have won the game in regulation, probably. Then the 4th, I would say, would be Dre Greenlaw's strange Achilles tear. Because, like, you could tell in the overtime, we were definitely missing our linebackers. Not really, we had Fred Warner, but we were missing our second linebacker, as Greenlaw and Warner as a duo have been great as linebackers this season. Because in overtime, it was mostly short passes and checkdowns to tight end Travis Kelce, and then the receivers Watson and Rice. And then a few run plays. Like Mahomes didn't play hero ball like we would see in, football movies or stereotypically dream of from a quarterback in, that moment. And it was short, quick throws like that where you could tell they missed having Dre Greenlaw on the field because he was doing great at covering those during his time in the game. And what didn't help was also the lack of adjustments, which unfortunately resulted in the 49ers getting outcoached. It was a sad ending to a great year for a Golden Generation roster. Once again, 49ers fans are saying, what could have been for this Golden Generation. In terms of both teams' futures, for the Chiefs, they look to remain a contending team for a while. They are the new dynasty, looking to three-peat, and they've gotten to this point with contract restructuring so they can keep the Golden Generation they have together. They have a really good roster, and they are just a couple of wide receivers away from once again being elite next year. In terms of defense, they are definitely looking to keep Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed on the roster, and I think for them it would be a huge mistake to let them walk out the door. As for the 49ers, Dre Greenlaw has undergone successful surgery for the torn Achilles, so we'll see how his recovery goes and how long it takes. And hopefully it's faster than we think. It's really just a sad injury that, frankly, nobody wants to see. As for the 49ers, they are tight on salary cap right now and have free agents. Some of these free agents include Tashawn Gibson, Ray McLeod, Chase Young, Sam Darnold, who is the backup quarterback. These are players that more than likely won't be back for the 49ers and will likely be playing somewhere else next year. Chase Young has been hit or miss, and while he played great in the Super Bowl and showed his elite potential, his performance outside of that, whether it was just an off day, lack of motivation, it just didn't feel as convincing. Gibson will be 34 years old next season, which is relatively old for a defensive safety. So look to see him walk, and the 49ers to look to have a younger player there, which will more than likely be a returning Talanoa Hufanga or Jair Brown. I think Ray McLeod will be replaced with Ronnie Bell on the special teams. And I think that will be for salary cap reasons. And I will say the same thing for Sam Darnold, who also wasn't convincing as quarterback. I mean, in the game against the Rams, he looked like Jimmy G 2.0. Actually, worse. He looked very undecisive in the pocket. Then you have, three key free agents. Then you have, three, really big key free agents. Juwan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk, and Javon Kinlaw. Those are definitely players that you want to keep. But with the salary cap, it's going to be tough, and we will possibly lose a key player on either side of the ball. The 49ers have expressed they really do want to keep Brandon Ayuk, given how key he was this season, and he is an elite wide receiver. So we'll see if they can restructure contracts and have the salary cap space to keep him, because we can't trade Samuel or Kittle, and I'm not sure the 49ers would really want to do that. And even if they did, that would be dead, cap space money. So we'll see how they figure this all out. And this is why for many 49ers fans that I've talked to, it does feel like the worst loss in history for the 49ers and the franchise, because this is the golden generation. We may, with salary cap right now, only have 1, maybe 2 more years before the golden generation disintegrates, and they are likely to rebuild. Because after the 2024 season, we'll have to pay Brock Purdy. And because of the tight salary cap space, that means the 49ers will lose some players after 2024. So once again, it will be, for next year, an all-in mentality for a couple more years, where anything short of winning the Super Bowl will definitely feel like a failure for the 49ers. At this point, the 49ers have been to the Super Bowl and NFC Championship so many times. Super Bowl twice, NFC Championship, falling short. So, at this point, even the NFC Championship game feels kind of meaningless if they don't win the Super Bowl. So, now the question is, will the 49ers be able to finally win the Super Bowl with this golden generation roster while it's still mostly there? Obviously, I'm a 49ers fan. And 49ers fans still remain faithful and loyal to the team. With that, hopefully, we'll see. Anyways, that is all for watching. That is all. Thanks for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, put your thoughts down in the comments. Jarrell Johnson, you are the first comment I have gotten from a viewer. He commented, quote, "Well, this didn't age well." This was referencing my Super Bowl prediction video. And to respond, yeah, that is why it is just a prediction and not a guarantee. And that is why I will also never bet money on sports. Nevertheless, hey man, you are the first person to comment. Thanks. Guys, feel free to put your sports opinions and comments down about the Super Bowl, next NFL season, other sports. Put your thoughts in the comments. I would love to see it. leave a like, subscribe, spread the word, and show some love to the channel. Thanks, everyone, and I will see you in the next one.